Yields, I now acknowledge myself for 5 minutes. First, let me say you have a big job, I think, to counter primarily our adversaries. I know in 2018 we passed the BUILD Act, Development Finance Corporation, with an eye towards countering the Belt and Road Initiative primarily. And equity, as you know, sir, has been an issue since the inception of when the BUILD Act was passed. OMB has basically said any equity deal that the DFC does is considered a loss, treating equity on a dollar-for-dollar basis. Our intent back then was that it be treated on a net present value basis, not dollar for dollar. We couldn't resolve this in the last administration. Although I tried with Mick Mulvaney at OMB, he was very stubborn about it, although a dear friend. But in fact, last month, Administrator Power told us that a compromise is still being worked with OMB. I'm not so sure. Do you believe that it is possible to work with the OMB to get to treat equity on a net present value?
Well, I believe that OMB supports the proposal to create an equity fix. There's always a question around exactly the details of the proposal and what the language should be for that. But OMB, the whole administration, supports an equity fix. I think it requires an act of Congress, however. And I know there's been some legislation proposed, whether it gets addressed separately before reauthorization or in reauthorization. I think this is just critical. If you look at our $9.3 billion of activity of deals last year, 500 million of it roughly was equity. That cost $500 million of appropriation as if it were a grant. Right. The other 8.8 billion of transactions required only 110 million of appropriation. There's great bang for the buck for the US taxpayer in that. Somewhere in between dollar for dollar and the kind of high leverage ratio on the rest of our portfolio has got to be the solution. That will give us a lot more opportunity to make a difference with equity early in projects, to have influence, to be more forward-leaning on risk, and really make the kind of impact that Congress intended.
I completely agree, and I think that you and I have talked about this. I mean, I think it's a fix that's necessary if you factor in the return on the investment, and that's not how the current process is being scored by OMB. We will continue to try to work with them and you and the administration. We are considering an idea of setting up a separate corporate capital account for equity, not tied to the DFC's maximum contingent liability, that would potentially allow more equity deals to be pursued. Do you have any thoughts on that idea? That would actually circumvent both the OMB and also the budget committees if they were not willing to come to a fix.
Well, we're very interested in working with you and your team as closely as possible to make this happen. It's long overdue to have a fix. The idea that somehow we're going to lose 100 cents of every dollar that we're currently investing. I'm not saying that DFC is going to be the best equity investor ever, but there's no way that we're going to lose 100 cents on every dollar, and that's the way it's accounted for now. That makes no sense whatsoever. So we need to find a pathway to fix this and fix it as soon as possible.
I think it's key. It will give you a lot more power and investments, I think, and you'll have more private investors coming to you, as a result of that. So, well, I look forward to working with you on that, and I appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.